Good morning. Now, coffee with John. There's been a few memes going around that on the internet and on social media. One of them I'd like to be able to talk to you about this morning, and that is uh, there is a breath of God thing that's been going around. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And I looked at it and I read it. And I thought that it just doesn't seem right. There's something that's just not right about it. Uh, this is it talks about the name of God that he gave Moses being Yahweh and how that's related to our breathing. Have you seen something like that going around? I'm going to show you a picture and I'm going to read an article. The article goes with the image and the meme. And we're going to dive into that a little bit and say, where's this coming from? What does it mean? Is it right? Is this good? I mean, it sounds pretty cool the way that it's presented. But sometimes when you see these things float around, you need to take a pause, look at it a bit, maybe do a little bit of reading into a little bit of background before you hand it off to the next person. Even if it is something that sounds pretty cool, pretty spiritual or something, there may be something else, another meaning behind it that you want to dig into a little first. So I'm going to read the meme first. I'm going to put it up on the screen and we'll see about what this actually means. It goes something like this. There was a moment when Moses had the nerve to ask God what his name is. God was gracious enough to answer, and the name he gave is recorded in the original Hebrew as YaHWeH. Of course, it's not the English letters or the Latin letters there, but they're going to be Hebrew script instead, Hebrew letters. So the meme goes on to say, over time, we've arbitrarily added an A and an E in there to get Yahweh, get the name Yahweh. Presumably because we have a preference for vowels. Now, if you know anything about the Hebrew language, you'll know this is not even remotely close to being true. You just don't feel like you're going to put vowels in. There's a whole history of that. We'll touch on that in just a minute. But this is where this meme starts going off the rails with this. It sounds good. It kind of makes sense, but it's not really what happened. But continuing with the script here, but scholars and rabbis have noted that the letters YHWH represent breathing sounds or aspirated consonants. When pronounced with intervening vowels, it actually sounds like breathing. YH inhale, WH exhale. Again, I'm not saying this. This is what the article is saying. So a baby's first cry, it says, his first breath speaks the name of God. A deep sigh calls his name, or a groan, or a gasp that is too heavy for mere words. Even an atheist would speak his name, unaware that their very breath is giving constant acknowledgement to God. I wish I could change my voice a little bit so you can tell this isn't me talking. This is what the meme says. So when I can't utter anything else, it is my calling out his name. Being alive means I speak his name constantly. So it is heard the loudest when I'm the quietest, just by breathing, this article says. In sadness, we breathe heavy sighs. In joys, our lungs feel almost like they'll burst. In fear, we'll hold our breath and we'll have to be told to breathe slowly to help us calm down. When we're about to do something hard, we take a deep breath to find our courage. When I think about it, breathing is giving him praise, even in the hardest moments. So, again, this is not me saying it. This is the meme, okay? When this is so beautiful and fills me with emotions, every time I grasp the thoughts, God chose to give himself a name so that We can't help but speak it every time we're alive. All of us, everywhere, walking, sleeping, breathing with the name of God. Now, this is where it sounds like it's beautiful thing. Okay, it's like, oh, God's, He's a part of our breath, He's a part of our breathing. Now, we know that Genesis, it says that God breathed into Adam. So God gave us life with his breath. And there's all sorts of instances in the Bible where there is something about life with breath. And we know, medically speaking, that if you stop breathing, then lack of oxygen, brain death, all that kind of stuff that's going to happen. But there is something unique about the breath of God given for life itself. We, above all creatures, are unique in this aspect, that we alone have the breath of God, which may mean that there's a level of conscience or sentience that human beings have that animals don't. So the breathing in and out is a gift from God. It is his breath that was originally in our lungs, but that's not what YaHWeH is about. That's not what the name, the Tetragrammaton that God gave Moses on Mount Sinai. That meant something totally different. So here's a problem with us putting something on top of a message that he gave us. He gave us his name, and then we're going to load it down with all these other things. And then when those other things aren't right, and somebody proves they're not right, then we have a crisis of faith, because we built our faith on these other things and not what he originally gave us. So with this message also comes an image, and the image can vary depending on what's given. So you might have seen this image with a meme. You see it floating around in maybe on Facebook, maybe on Instagram or other social media, something like this, with the message about the breath of God being YHWH. And the thought that every time we breathe, the inhale, YH, and the exhale, WH. And the idea is that uniquely, the YH is an inhale and the WH is an exhale. Is that the case? Is that really? What if I exhale the YH and inhale the WH? You could try that right now. The idea was that, okay, when we inhale, it's I could easily go it doesn't matter either way. The consonants themselves are the hard stops, and the vowels are the aspiration. Whenever you speak a vowel, that's the aspiration, and the consonants are the stops. Bilabial, there's all sorts of different words for that. So it's not something special, unique with those letters. It doesn't. You can throw whatever letters you want in here. So now neither of these letters do have hard stops with it. They're all soft, but the vowels are the part that is the aspiration. So there is not, when you, the other statement that's made by this article is that people just arbitrarily put vowels in. So real quick, a little bit of background with the Hebrew language. When Hebrew was originally written, there were no vowels that were in the language at all. It's not because of any kind of mystical thing with breathing of God or anything. It was, they are just showing an abbreviated version. Paper was hard to come by. Papyrus, you weren't able to write down on parchment or whatever. It was not cheap. And not only in Hebrew, but other Semitic languages and other languages around the region, you didn't put vowels in. Think about it. We do that now with some of our own abbreviations, like management, MGT. Other words that we would want to abbreviate, we chop the vowels out. That's exactly what they did. And for the most part, you won't confuse MGT with anything but management, but there might be some other words that would coincide with that. So you have as the language progressed over time and fewer speakers were using Hebrew, Jewish scholars would say, well, we've got to pin this down. There in language, vowels change the most over time. In the English language, we had something called the Great Vowel Shift, where there were E's became A's and so forth, where it just kind of shifted around a bit. And so as a language gets older, goes on in age, it loses and changes and shifts the vowels. The consonants pretty much say the same. So this group of scholars, the Masoretes, between 500 and 1000 AD, got together and said, we need to nail this down. But we're not going to change the text. We're not going to create another character for this vowel like A and then kind of try to slip it in there, because they were so careful with their transmission of that text. They didn't want to mess their copy methods up and have an error, a copy error that was propagated throughout the next and the next copy and the next copy. So they wanted to preserve the original text. And they would instead of inserting a vowel in there, they would make little dots and dashes below, above, and within it. And these vowel points then could be added to the text and not change the overall structure of the page. They would, when they copied them down, they would even say, okay, line 15, you have 14 characters that go across, or 26 characters, whatever it is. So they would count the number of characters to make sure that, yep, I did it. I copied it correctly. There's 26 characters in line 15. I know how many characters are. If you start shoving vowels in there, it's going to mess that whole system up. So the vowel points, dashes and dots would be inserted in there. And that's where you could get the right sound, preserve that to the next generation. So that's something that's not lost. So this was not something that was arbitrarily put in, that you would add the YaHWeH breathing. It would be done like, and here's some examples of the vowel points that were given with the names that are underneath them. These were added to YaHWeH, the name of God, and all the other words in the Old Testament script. These were all added. So here's an example of Hebrew with a Hebrew script. Now this is the Masorete script with the flourishes like they have. Ancient Hebrew was more like, I want to say chicken scratches, but they didn't have, it was simpler version of this. This is somebody coming in with a stylus or a quill or a brush to make these beautiful text to make these marks. And then you see the example of the Hebrew script with the vowel points underneath. So this claim that these were just added, that this was breath of God, just added arbitrarily, and this was the breath of God breathed in and breathed out, like these were unique letters. They're not for that. You could apply the breathing to anything that has vowels in it with soft consonants. Where does this whole idea come from? Well, I'm going to delve into that in next week. We're going to look at that for Tuesday. Before that, I'm going to get together with your brother in Christ, and we're going to do another review like we did yesterday. I'd like to know from you whether you think that this type of material or reviewing science fiction, pop culture science fiction is better, that you prefer one or the other. There's plenty of material that we have for either side. Delve into theological issues, delve into things like this where we're talking about how memes get around, and how things are abused. And please don't pass this around. It's not true. about the whole God breathing thing. Then next Tuesday, I'm going to delve into where this meme came from and then how it got propagated around. So until then, thanks for joining me for a little bit of coffee and a little bit of chat with this. Please let me know in your comments what your thoughts are. If you're a better Hebrew scholar than I am not a Hebrew scholar. I delved into it. I did minor in it when I was in college, but I'm not. You throw some Hebrew text in front of me, and I'm not going to be able to read it. I might be able to sound it out given enough time, but I'm not going to be able to tell you what it really means for the most part. I might be able to pick out a few words. But give me all the feedback that you have for that, and we'll see. We'll go from there. Until then, have a great morning, and we'll see you on Monday with another review. We're going to go over Stargate SG-1, one of my favorites. I'm going to talk with your brother in Christ about that, and where there's a lot. There's how many? I forget how many seasons they had. We'll talk about it on Monday and delve a little bit deeper. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.